Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the show. John Henry Soto here. It is March 3rd, 2026, 7 a.m. here central in Nashville, Tennessee. This is a live morning space for artists, filmmakers, musicians, and creators who are navigating the real world of making art. On this show, we talk about positivity, but not the fluffy kind. We talk about what actually stops artists from moving forward, the struggles we all face, and how to move through them with clarity and purpose. We'll also highlight good things happening in the industry, share ideas, suggestions, and practical advice, and most importantly, have honest conversations. This is a live show, so if you're here, feel free to ask questions or join in. This is a place to reset, get grounded, and start the day moving forward as an artist. And good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well out there. As I said, it's Tuesday. I think we're gonna have a nice day today. We had a kind of a rainy, cloudy day yesterday, but it was still a beautiful day. A lot nicer than the ice storm we had a couple of weeks ago. That was a rough and strange thing. I'm not really used to, although I'm used to snow coming from New York City and coming from the East Coast and North. But now in the South, you're not really. They don't really get a lot of that here. So it's pretty interesting. So today we're gonna talk about. Sometimes you have things that you're working on. You have projects that you're like so passionate about, and you work on them so hard, and you're thinking, "Oh, I can't wait, this is so exciting." And then for whatever reason the project collapses or it doesn't happen, or whatever the case may be, it just doesn't happen. Or maybe you have a project that you wrote down on paper that you wanted to do, and it's just sitting there on that same piece of paper. Maybe you wrote it on your phone. Maybe you spoke an idea on your phone that you really want to do it because you really think it's a really great idea, and I bet you it is a great idea, but you haven't been able to really get the trigger pulled on it, or you haven't been able to really attack that project the way you wanted to, and it's kind of sitting there. And believe it or not, I know it may sound silly to some people, but when an artist is kind of sitting on something that they haven't done, there's a grieving process there. You don't think about it. It doesn't feel like grieving. Obviously, it's not as serious as losing a loved one, but there is a grieving part of something that just didn't happen, something that got away, something you lost. Uh, a a direction, a purpose that you had that just got stopped, and you now have this emptiness because of this project. Or and it sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a group, sometimes you're a group of people, of individuals that are interested in creating a project, and somehow it stopped. And believe it or not, there is a grieving, and that's why grieving the film that never gets made, or the project that never gets made. There's a kind of heartbreak in filmmaking that nobody puts on a poster. It's not the bad review, it's not the box office numbers, it's the film that never happens, the script that lived on your laptop for years, the project you pitched 100 times, the one that almost had financing, almost had cast, almost had a green light, and then silence. For filmmakers, those unfinished films aren't just ideas, they're chapters of our lives. And one of the things that I like to do is I make sure that I'm always creating something, even if it's not the thing that I'm really focused on, or the thing that just didn't happen for whatever reason. I'm always like focused and conscious on, like, well, if that didn't work out, I want to make sure that I get to this. And at the end of today's show, I'm going to give you 5 things that I use to kind of keep my sanity while you're trying to make these, a lot of projects. Perfect example is a friend of mine. Uh, well, he's an acquaintance that I met here in Nashville. We had coffee at some coffee place and we chatted. He's a very well award-winning script writer, and he has a new script. He sent me the whole script. I read it. I thought it was really great. I messaged him, told him that how much I enjoyed it, and now he wants me involved in the project in some way. That was I don't know, 5 months ago or something that we met for coffee, and so these things also, what you have to also understand is sometimes when you're in someone else's project, it they're going through the same thing. So you have to have a certain level of patience when you're in this industry, because it just doesn't happen overnight. And you may be signed on to a project. I have projects right now that I'm kind of like waiting on others to kind of get their end of the, it's their project, and I'm sort of been invited to be part of it, and I'm super grateful that they're trusting me to be part of their project. But at the same time, you have to kind of keep moving forward on your own projects while you're waiting for them to kind of get their project moving as well. So you see, it does become a little bit of a challenge when you're working on your own things that aren't happening, and then you have someone else sign you or give you a project that's not happening yet. And what people don't see is how deeply personal those projects become. You scout locations in your mind, you hear the score before a composer ever writes a note. You imagine the premiere, the audience reaction, the impact. You carry that story around like a secret for years. So then when it collapses because of funding disappears, or a partner backs out, timing shifts, or the industry pivots, it's not just a business loss, it's grief. It's real grief. You mourn something that never existed publicly but felt completely alive inside of you, and those projects are completely alive inside of you. And so, you know, they may have never existed in the physical universe, but they definitely do exist in your mind and in your heart. And when you're passionate about bringing those projects together, they definitely do exist. And when they don't happen, there's a part of you that gets lost. There's a part of you that's buried somewhere that you're trying to dig up, and you do feel it. And if somebody doesn't understand this level of creativity or this pain, um, you know, you know, you you just it's really difficult to explain. It's even difficult to articulate clearly enough to someone that really may not have the reality of creating a project that just never happens and just sits there. And if you don't understand what that's like, then it's a difficult thing to un, you know to understand. But I guarantee you that there are people right now, if you're watching this, I'm sure they're shaking their head going, yeah, I know what that's like, because it is a real thing you know and yet, this invisible heartbreak is part of the filmmaker's journey. Every unmade film shapes the next one. Every no sharpens your voice. Sometimes the story wasn't meant for that season. Sometimes it's meant to evolve. And sometimes it simply taught you what you needed to know to make the next project stronger. The films that never get made still matter because they built the filmmakers who keep going. And that's how I look at it. Now, there are you know certain things like what I have not made just makes the next thing I'm working on stronger. And but I don't quit. I don't think that it's not going to happen. I have a film now. My last film took 3 years to, but that was because it was in the middle of the pandemic, so I had no control over certain elements of it. Things just shut down, and when you can't do something because of the pandemic, it is what it is, right? So, but I did use that time to educate myself on filmmaking. So what I did, and this is something that I can add to the list that I'm about to give you, maybe as a number six on this, but or maybe not. There is something here. I decided that, you know what, my editor, I had somebody that was going to edit, disappeared on me, right? So I didn't have anybody to edit the film and color correct it and do some other things. So I had to then pivot, and I figure we're home. There's a pandemic, everybody's home, right? Um, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go online and I'm going to teach myself how to edit. And that confronting that was just something I did not want to do, but I did it somehow. I found a course, and I took a class. It was about, I don't know, I think it was like just 2 weeks or something. It wasn't a long it was like videos, and then but it was an actual thing. I paid for it, and there was an instructor, and I could ask questions and all that. Anyway, I took this editing course, and I really learned not so much the technical part of editing. All you need to know is how to cut, right? You know how to cut from one scene, you know how to put it on the timeline, you need to splice it, you need to put the scenes where they belong, let them flow, get the eye line going. You know, that's all the basics of editing that I learned. But then I also learned about building the arc and storytelling and momentum and things like that. And that really helped me a lot with my film. So I got in there and I started editing my film, and it took me I don't know, a couple of months learning and figuring it out. And then I tried to fix the sound, and I could not do the sound. You have that one even sound through the whole film. Sometimes you have a sound that's a little bit, it's a little off, and the voice may be a little bit different. You need to even it all out. Could not figure that out, and I couldn't figure out how to uh, do the color correction. So I just sat there. The film sat there for a little bit, and then I would just keep working on it a little bit, and I found an editor. I'm sorry, I found a color correction person in Germany. I found another a sound guy. I think he was in I want to say Belarus or something. It was another. I have their information. They're on my at the credits of my film. I found a sound guy, fixed my sound. They fixed everything. I went back through it. I don't know how many times. I know that film by every single word of that film. I know I can literally quote the film, note for note, word for word, because I wrote it. That's number one, and then I shot it. That's two, and now I edit it. That's three. So, but I cleaned it up. I shortened things. Sometimes short films and independent films sometimes have sequences that are very very long and sometimes not needed. They're just kind of put in there because the filmmaker liked how the lighting looked, but it doesn't really serve the story. So I learned that from editing as well, from the editing course I took. So I went in and I chopped up a lot more, and I really made it a tight. It was a 14-minute film, maybe less because of the credits and the opening sequence. I don't really count that much, but the film, the meat of it is about, I would say, about 12, 13 minutes long. And I put it out, and I went to a lot of festivals, and I got to screen it, and it did really really well. I was very happy at how it was received, and I still have the film that I'm still promoting it, and I still put it out there. And now I have my new film that I've been working on for about a year, and that one is called, this one right here that I'll show on the screen, Not Our Time. And that one now I'm working on, but that's been kind of stalled as well because I had a cast for it, and now the cast didn't work out. Um, yeah, and my fault for taking too long, and the cast has to move on, and it was my responsibility and my fault. So I'm on that road as well. So I understand the grieving of sometimes projects that don't get off the ground, and man, it really sucks. Really really sucks. So here are 5 things that I do that can allow you to kind of keep going and keep producing and stay, keep emotionally high. So number one is allow yourself to actually grieve. Don't minimize it. Don't pretend it wasn't that big of a deal. If you spent years developing, dreaming it, pitching it, it mattered. Give yourself permission to feel disappointed, frustrated, even heartbroken. Suppressed grief turns into creative being paralyzed. So don't pretend like it wasn't a big deal to you. It was, just feel it and be like, ah, man, don't dwell on it for a long time, but it's okay to grieve on it and say, like, man, I couldn't get this thing off the ground. Maybe even having that viewpoint might actually get it off the ground even a lot stronger. You just don't know. But allow yourself to feel. We're in this, I think we're coming back to it now where people are allowed to feel emotions, not to feel irrational emotions, if you're, but it's not irrational to be working on something and then have it not work out for you. That's not irrational. Irrational is other things that we see in the media and stuff like that. That's irrational. We're talking about an actual thing that occurred that you're working on that didn't work out your way, and it's okay to be disappointed about it. Totally fine. Number two is separate your identity from the project. You are not the project, right? You yourself are not the project. It's a creative thing that you're putting together, but you yourself are not the project. The film failing to launch does not mean you failed. Projects fall apart for countless reasons: timing, money, market shifts, politics, most of which are outside of your control. You are still the filmmaker. Your voice still exists. One project does not determine your value. You have to understand that one project is not who you are. You have to separate yourself from the project and know that that is a project, and that particular thing did not work out yet, maybe, right? Maybe you still have some life in it, but it's just sitting there for now, and it's not who you are. You can still keep moving forward. Number three is extract the lessons. Always learn from everything, right? I mean, every collapsed project leaves behind assets, stronger writing skills, industry relationships, pitching experience, resilience. Ask yourself, what did this teach me? Sometimes the unmade film was your training ground for the one that gets made. You know, that's so important. When something doesn't work out, you have to be able to stop. You have to be able to sit down, with a cup of coffee and a notepad, and think of the things that you learn and write those things down. Maybe you learned how to uh, pitch, how to network. Maybe you met someone that maybe that project didn't work out, but you really got along really well. And maybe the next film you can be on his film or her film, and they can be on your film. You met a connection. You have to find some positivity within that. Extract the lessons, pull them out, look at them, document them. This is what I learned on this last project that didn't work out, but this is the lessons that I drew from it. Sometimes it's even pitching ideas. You learned how to pitch. You realize I shouldn't pitch this way. Financing, I should go this direction instead of that direction for financing. Some people do where they raise money online and they have Kickstarter accounts and those kinds of things. Maybe that didn't work. Crowdfunding wasn't for me. I thought it was. Maybe I need to find another way. Now you learned. You learn that that's not your strongest point. Maybe you need to hire someone to do that part. See, there's all these different things that you can learn when something doesn't go your way. And it's important. People say you learn the most from your failures, not your successes. Because when you're successful, you're just kind of thinking, when I'm sitting there watching my film on the big screen, I'm like, wow, that's a great moment, right? What am I learning there? How to just smile and say thank you to everyone. Okay, that's awesome. And the validation feels fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing. But you really, really learn when that thing doesn't work out and you realize, man, what happened? What did I do? What can I learn from this? What can I do different on the next one? Make sure you extract the lessons on every failure, because it's not a failure, it's a learning process. Number four is repurpose what you can. So nothing is wasted. A character can live in another story. A scene can become a short. A concept can evolve into a podcast, proof of concept trailer, or episodic idea. Creative energy doesn't have to die just because the original format did. So that's a great point too, and that's something that I've used a couple of times on different projects where I started in. I'll give you a quick example, and it's still not even hasn't really fully happened, but it happened to a bigger degree. So I was living in Queens, and I had a thing. I lived in Sunnyside, Queens, and so I had an idea for a writer, and it was a cross between a TV show between. I'm dating myself here, so if you're young, you can Google this. But there was a TV show called Murder She Wrote. It was with Angela Lansbury. It was a groundbreaking show. It was really great. She was a writer. She was a mystery writer, and she would solve all these crimes and everything. It was really a great show. And then there was another show called Monk. You probably have heard of that show. That show is still popular with some of the younger folks. And so I kind of made a combination of a character, and the character's name was Bobby, and he worked in a small town, and he was a writer for a small paper. So I was living in Sunnyside, Queens, and so I named it Right in Sunnyside, Right, Write, Right in Sunnyside. And it was about this character. So I moved from Sunnyside, and I couldn't get the project made in Sunnyside, and I lived there many years. Then I moved to Bayonne, New Jersey. So I changed it to Right in Bayonne, and I rewrote it to kind of fit that small town of Bayonne, New Jersey. And I wrote that. And then that kind of like didn't really work out. But I did shoot one episode of it with, I did cast it. I did have an editor, and I did have a good thing. You can see that on my YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's called Right in Bayonne. And you can see that, and you can see the promo for it. Um, and then I took that character, and a production company that I was working with on a film that I was in that went to the Cannes Film Festival, which was really fun. that uh they that production company had, was asking me, do I have any ideas? So I had these ideas. So I rewrote this to be another character named Pitch. Now I have all these still in the works and still documented, and I have all the scripts and everything, and I own all that material. And we did shoot one sizzle reel in the Bronx, New York, and it was about a sort of a similar character. So I repurposed this character, you know, and now I played this character. Now I don't know if I want to play this character at this stage now of my life, but I can always I could always correct that by hiring someone, right, or just um, or changing the format if I do want to play it. I don't know if I do, but so what I'm saying is, when you have these, it's almost like extract the lessons, right? Well, what can I still use this material for? Maybe there's a monologue there that I can use, or maybe there's a monologue that I can act in front of the camera and tell people that this is a monologue from a project that I was working on. It's called blah 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 blah. Maybe that'll pique somebody's interest, and maybe it'll reignite it. So think that way, that you can always repurpose what it is. It didn't go to waste. It's something that you can still use. Maybe you can turn it into a short. Maybe it was a feature. Maybe you can just do a couple of sizzle reels, meaning that you can shoot it like it's an actual film, but they're just short scenes in the film itself. So grab like 3 scenes, cast people, shoot them. It'll take a lot faster to shoot, a lot cheaper to shoot it, and then you have yourself a sizzle reel, and you can sell, not sell, you can share that with people who might want to be interested in the whole project. Okay. And number 5, and the final one here, and this is something that I do a lot, is start something new, even if it's small. You know, so when I get stuck on something, I start a new thing. Either it's a blog that I'm writing, a video thing that I'm putting together, something that I start that I put together. Momentum heals. Not a massive feature, not another 5-year epic, something small, a short scene, a 2-minute piece, a vertical short. Action builds confidence. Creation reminds you who you are. So create something, a 2-minute thing that you can put together on your own, and at least you'll be still creating. And what that does is that it keeps that, because you had that loss of that project that didn't go. Now you have something to revitalize it, because now you're creating, so the juices are still flowing, right? You I'm always talking about spirituality when it comes to creativity, but you as a spiritual being, or you as a person, or whatever you think of yourself are, as that part of you that likes to create, is still going. It's still being, you're exercising that muscle regardless of that project that didn't take, but you're still exercising that muscle. Really, really important to do something like that. That's I would say one of the most important things is do something. Get on the phone with someone, another creative person, and go have coffee with someone and say, hey, let's do an interview. Let's interview each other on our TikTok accounts. You interview me, I'll interview you. Let's talk about film. Let's do a quick podcast about film, and let's put it out there. Whatever it is, do something creative, even if it's small. The truth is, every serious filmmakers has a graveyard of unmade films. Boy, that's true. Um, the difference between the ones who last and the ones who disappear is simply they keep creating anyway. And that's what I always suggest to people. I say, keep creating anyway. And when people give you a hard time on that, you pivot and you keep going. Very important. It's a joy for me to sit here with you every morning, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Central. I talk about different things that I've learned in film. Sometimes I just ramble on here and get my thoughts out. And sometimes I get wonderful, wonderful comments from all of you, and I appreciate the support. It's been a wonderful journey here doing these in the morning. I have some projects coming up, so I don't know how long I can keep going in the morning here at 7 a.m. But I will do some variation of this. Of course, you can always catch me on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central, with George Batista as we do our show where we cover and we interview amazing, award-winning and legendary actors and filmmakers and musicians, a lot of musicians, and people in business and doctors and whatever the case may be. We actually have that every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central. It is a live show, so you can actually dive in and talk to us and ask questions of our guests or us. And you can do that as well. But I love being here in the morning with you. It really revitalizes me for the day. It gives me a great start to my day. And if you have ever thought of doing this, I would encourage you to do something like this, even if it's just a live stream on one of the platforms. Go live on TikTok every morning at the same time. Give your thoughts about what you're going through, what you're working on, and it does actually do something. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it does actually elevate you and make you feel like you've done something and that you've communicated your thoughts, and it's almost like an affirmation to yourself in the mornings. So I hope this helps. I want to thank you all for tuning in. God bless you all. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other, because we're all we got. I'll see you tomorrow morning. And as always, peace.